So, we're here today to talk about something that sounds a bit wonky, but stick with me. Micro-optimization. I mean, it sounds like something we should all want, right? You know, squeezing out every bit of efficiency possible from a system. But, in the real world, it gets a little complicated. So, tell me, why isn't micro-optimization the magic bullet that it sounds like?
You're absolutely right. It does sound appealing on the surface. Micro-optimization is all about improving specific parts of a process to the highest level of efficiency. The challenge, though, is that when you focus too narrowly, you risk losing sight of the broader picture: operational excellence. Operational excellence is about aligning every piece of an organization toward its overarching goals. Micro-optimizations, if not balanced carefully, can create disruptions or conflicts with that larger mission.
Okay, so it's like focusing too much on polishing one spot of a car while ignoring that the engine needs a tune-up? But what about KPIs? I mean, don't organizations use those to track performance and know what's going on?
Exactly, it's a perfect analogy. Now, KPIs, or key performance indicators, are critical in tracking success, but they can also become a bit of a trap when micro-optimization is involved. Let's say you have a department that is hyper-focused on improving one particular KPI. Maybe it's production speed or cost per unit. Now, while they may hit that KPI, it might come at the cost of something else, like quality, safety, or employee satisfaction. When you optimize in a silo, you may be moving the needle on a specific metric, but you're not necessarily improving the system as a whole. And that's the danger. The KPIs for one department might look great, but overall operational performance may suffer. KPIs need to be balanced, contextual, and reflective of the broader goals. Otherwise, micro-optimization risks steering the ship off course.
Right, so you're saying that the organization could be killing it on one KPI, but tanking on something else just as important? That doesn't sound like a win to me. But people love data. What about the data? Surely that helps, right?
Oh, absolutely. Data is fundamental. It's how we measure, track, and adjust. But just like with KPIs, data can be misleading if you don't interpret it with the bigger picture in mind. Micro-optimizations often produce local data that looks amazing. You might see, for example, that a team is processing orders faster, but that data point alone doesn't tell you if those orders are accurate, if they're satisfying customer needs, or if they're creating rework downstream. When organizations become too focused on improving small data points without considering the entire operational flow, they risk overemphasizing performance in areas that may not be truly adding value. Data should guide holistic improvements, not just hyper-specific ones.
Got it. So, what about the humans involved? I mean, people respond to incentives, right? If someone's bonus is tied to hitting a target, they're going to work really hard to hit it. Does micro-optimization mess with that?
Incentives can absolutely become part of the problem when we talk about micro-optimization. When employees are incentivized based on narrow KPIs or specific metrics, they'll naturally focus their efforts there. It's human nature, really. But again, what gets lost is the broader objective. If your customer service team, for example, is incentivized purely on call times, they might rush through interactions to shorten those calls. That can boost one metric, average call duration, but hurt customer satisfaction or lead to unresolved issues. So, while incentives are important, they need to be aligned with holistic performance metrics, not just narrow ones. Otherwise, people might win the battle but lose the war. Operational excellence requires incentives that encourage cross-functional collaboration and the achievement of broader organizational goals.
It sounds like this focus on tiny optimizations can set people up for failure, even if they're technically winning by the numbers. You've mentioned policies and processes a few times now. What's happening there? Are policies a roadblock?
Yes, policies and processes often become rigid when organizations are chasing micro-optimizations. When the focus is too much on perfecting a small piece of the puzzle, the processes are designed to reflect that. But the problem is, when policies are too prescriptive, when they demand perfection on one part of the process, they stifle innovation and adaptability elsewhere. Employees end up boxed into rigid structures that don't allow for flexibility, creativity, or collaboration across departments. And over time, those rigid processes and policies get baked into the organizational culture. You see this in legacy systems where micro-optimizations of the past have led to convoluted processes that no one dares change because they're focused on small wins, not on adapting to the overall market or customer needs.
So, even the policies can become part of the problem if they're too focused on specific little optimizations. What about the flip side? If we avoid micro-optimization, how do we strike the right balance between improving processes and keeping the big picture in mind?
It's all about balance and alignment. Micro-optimizations have their place. They can deliver incremental improvements, and that's important. But they need to be viewed within the context of the entire organization. Leaders should ensure that any optimization effort, no matter how small, is aligned with broader strategic goals. This requires cross-functional collaboration, transparency, and a commitment to continuous improvement. When process improvement efforts are aligned with the organization's vision, then KPIs, data, and incentives become tools to drive meaningful change rather than isolated wins. Policies should encourage flexibility, empower employees, and create a culture where improvements happen holistically rather than in silos. That's how you maintain operational excellence.
So, what you're saying is that micro-optimizations aren't the enemy, but they need to be part of a bigger strategy like the ingredient in a recipe, not the whole dish.
Exactly. It's about knowing how the parts fit together and being disciplined in focusing on outcomes that support the whole organization. When micro-optimizations are integrated into a broader strategy, where KPIs, data, and incentives are aligned, then you've got a recipe for success. But if we lose that perspective, we risk creating efficiency in the wrong areas and missing out on true operational excellence.
That's a great way to put it. Thank you so much for breaking this down. It's like I'll never look at the word optimization the same way again.
It was my pleasure. Always happy to shed light on how these small changes can lead to bigger impacts, for better or worse.